and I hear a knock at my door. I went up to the door and I had opened it. As soon as I opened the door, there was a whole TV crew set in my face. There was a camera guy, a microphone guy, a director, and they just barged their way into the house. So around the time I started high school, my mom decided to sign me and my brother up on this TV show. I'm not saying we were bad, but I guess you could say we needed to be on that TV show. It all started when my mom had drove me and my brother into the city. She wouldn't tell us where we were headed to, so we just sat in the back seat and waited. We pulled up to this building, and inside there were other kids around my age, and they were sitting with their parents too, and we all just waited in this lobby. We were finally called to the back, and when we got back there, it was some guy at a desk. He sat us down and asked me and my brother some questions. It almost felt like we were being interrogated. After we answered all his questions, we left home. But little did I know this was the first step of the process. So a few weeks go by, and I remember I was playing my game, and I hear a knock at my door. I went up to the door and I had opened it. As soon as I opened the door, there was a whole TV crew set in my face. There was a camera guy, a microphone guy, a director, and they just barged their way into the house. They greeted all of us, and they basically told us to go about our day and pretend they weren't there. So I would sketch in my notebook or play the game with my brother or go outside in the neighborhood. And they would just get footage of all of it. They also interviewed my mom while she was in the kitchen, and then they would pull us aside and interview us as well. And by the end of the day, they just packed up all their stuff and left. Now keep in mind, we have no idea what this was for. We didn't hear back from anybody until like a few weeks later. And it wasn't even us they contacted, it was our mom. So then came the day where we found out what was actually going on. We had to get up early in the morning and get dressed, and we didn't even know where we were headed. So this officer took us up to this classroom, and in the classroom was a few other kids. It was less people than before. And everybody in the room looked so serious, we had no idea what was going on. The officer told the parents to go on one side of the classroom, and they told the kids to go on the other. The officer then asked all the parents about their kid and what they've been doing that was so bad. And that's when I finally knew, okay, this is what this is all about. Some of the kids were in here for fighting, smoking, drinking, gambling, and being in gangs. I was in here for stealing specifically, and I didn't realize that was so serious at the time. I thought anybody did at our age. But I will admit now that I did get a little excessive with it, so that was probably the concern my mom had. After all the parents were done speaking, the officer told us he was then going to separate us from our parents, and we were going to go to the jailhouse for the whole day. In the back of my mind, I'm just thinking this is such a waste of time, but we had no choice. We were already there. So we all had to get in the back of a van, and we took like a 5 to 10 minute drive around the corner to the jailhouse. And keep in mind, the camera crew was also in the back of the van with us, just with cameras in our face, and we were all crowded back there. But as time passed by, we just talked to the other kids in the van, and we all got to know one another. As soon as we entered the jailhouse, that's when the test began. The officers all started yelling at us. We had to put on these jail clothes and flip-flops. Now, some of the kids were trying not to listen and give an attitude, so it only made it harder for the rest of us. They made us do push-ups and squats until we nearly passed out. It was basically an entire workout session before we even got started. Then we had to get fingerprinted, and they also gave us a laundry bag with our clothes for the rest of the day. I'll never forget, as we were walking down that hallway, I remember seeing a person locked up in a room and strapped to a chair, and he was screaming. I don't know if it was a scare tactic they were trying to use, but it seemed real to me, and it still does to this day. So then the officers, they finally separated us. The girls went to the girl part of the jail, and the guys went to the guy part of the jail. When we got over to the men's section, all the guys were beating on the door, scratching the windows, and they even had bottles of pee. I don't even know if it was real pee, but they were squeezing it at us. I really don't know if anything here was true or was all just staged to scare us. But I was really just ready for the day to be over. The officers took us to our jail cells, and we had to put all our belongings in the jail cell. And then they closed us inside of it so we can get a sense of what it would feel like being locked in there for the majority of the day. Then they had some inmates come over and try to scare us even some more. This one guy tried to have me brush his underwear with a toothbrush and it had brown stains in it. And I definitely wasn't doing that. But the inmates kept yelling at us and screaming and basically was trying to scare us straight. Lunchtime had came around the corner, and in our little bags they gave us, we had sandwich cookies and turkey sandwiches, and it was all soggy and wet. It was so bad I didn't eat it at all. I had rather starve. It was funny because the inmates were so excited they had took our lunch from us and they ate it themselves. They also took the tissue out of our bags and the extra clothes we had. It made me realize they really appreciate this stuff because I definitely didn't want it at all. After we were done in the men's side of the jail, we finally met back up with the girls. And then the officers all took us into the gay and the transgender wing of the jail. And personally, I feel like this is the part where they tried to scare us the most. They stood us against the wall and lined us all up, and they had us talk to each of the gay inmates. I remember this part even went viral on Instagram at the time when it first came out. The gay guy had told one of the kids that he wasn't that cute and that he looked at dusty. And I remember when he first said that, me, my brother, and the other kids on the wall, we were trying to hold our laugh in so bad so we didn't get in trouble, but it was hilarious. I remember it had this one guy, he kind of looked like Tupac. He had showed us his stab wounds that he had from prison, and he also showed us his so-called wife in the jail when we were there. And I'm not gonna lie, at that time, that is probably the most uncomfortable I had ever been. So the officers' tactics were working on us by showing us all these different things around the jail. But we weren't even done yet. Once we finally left from there, we got back in the van and they took us to the courthouse. At the courthouse, we had to sit down at the podium and talk to a judge, and there was also a juvenile attorney there who was trying to give us some insight. The judge had called me up, and I remember when I went up there, she asked me, what did I want to be when I grow up? At that time, I wanted to play football. I seen myself being in the NFL. She told me I needed to have good grades and I needed to get my act together. I had sat back down, and one of the kids who was with us throughout the whole day had got in trouble. He was really bad the entire time there, but they had sent him into a hidden room in the courthouse since he kept trying to crack jokes the entire time. I didn't even know the courthouse had hidden rooms, but this room was a door on the wall, almost like a bat cave or something. They had opened the door and they had locked them inside that room for the rest of the time that we were there. Fast forward, and from there, we finally left the courthouse and had got back into the van. So the officers had us meet back up with our parents in that same classroom from earlier. We all had sat down and they gave us a sheet of paper, and we basically had to write a full page on what we learned today and what we would change about ourselves. I don't remember what I wrote exactly, but I know it had to be something along the lines of I wouldn't steal anymore because I don't want to end up in jail. After we read our papers out loud, they had gave us food to eat, and we were starving because we definitely didn't eat that jail food that they had earlier. But they had gave us Firehouse subs. And when I tell you we ate that food so fast, and there was even leftovers, so we even took some of the food home to go. I had went back to school the next day, and I remember telling some of my friends that I was going to end up being on that show. A lot of them thought I was lying, so I just told them to wait and see. And I remember the day it actually aired on television. It was on Halloween exactly, and we had just got done trick-or-treating around the neighborhood. We got back inside around 10, and that's when the episode started airing. So we just sat there in the living room and ate our candy and watched. This was probably one of my best Halloweens ever and one of my best memories ever as well. The question I always get asked today is, did that show really scare me straight? And personally, I don't feel like it affected me. Obviously, I don't steal anymore and I learned my lesson. So that was that. And I guess that's the end of the story.